Think of some of the greatest movies of all time. Chances are a lot of them started out as books. Stories that were written decades, even centuries ago. From Pride and Prejudice to Frankenstein, classic literature has shaped modern cinema in ways that you probably didn't even realize was happening. But why do we keep on adapting these same stories over and over? Is Hollywood out of ideas? Or is there something about these timeless tales that still speak to us today? Hi everyone, I'm Brie. I'm an aspiring actress still learning about the film industry, and I'm doing it all on my own. No professional training here. I just heavily research all of these episodes, so I can save you time on learning about some of these basic things. If you are here to explore the crazy industry, please subscribe and follow for more videos. Alrighty, let's get right into it. So for this episode, it's kind of a lot of just random topics to talk about. I don't really know why I wanted to do this video to begin with, but it sounds interesting, and it was pretty interesting to research. So the first thing we're going to be talking about is why. The first thing is it's a timeless human experience. Like, a bunch of the older stories have great themes of love, ambition, revenge, and I feel like they're just so satisfying. Like, one of my favorite old, like, classic stories is The Count of Monte Cristo. Like, that one is, like, so good. Or there's, like, The Princess Bride, or, I'm trying to think of another fun one like that. Or, like, Robin Hood. But those ones are just still so fun to, like, you just can't really get tired of them. And then there's also characters that still resonate with us. Like, Elizabeth Bennet is a huge one. Like, Jay Gatsby, Victor Frankenstein, Joe March is a huge one. Now, the second topic of this is iconicness. Like, even people who haven't read or watched Dracula, they still know who he is, and it goes the same for Frankenstein, and just a bunch of those old ones. Like, I've actually never seen a Frankenstein movie, or Dracula. Well, I've seen stuff with Dracula in it, like Hotel Transylvania, but that's it, you know? Like, but even then I didn't have to watch the movie to understand who this character is and what he is. So, but they're very recognizable characters. And our third topic is it's a way to reinvent or reinterpret them. Every generation sees all these stories differently. Like, take Little Women, for example. There's the one that was made in 1994, and then there's the 2019 one. And both of them are the same story, but they are kind of, the perspective is a little bit different, and I feel like it still tells the same story, but it's like, I don't know. I love Little Women 2019. It was such a good movie. But it kind of brought it all back. And this is like the one movie genre that I'm okay with being recycled if it's done properly, is if it's like, I don't know, they're just good stories to recycle. And I know I've talked about in other videos, like, is Hollywood recycling movies? Or like if they're out of ideas. And a lot of the time the answer is yes. But what they're doing is they're recycling the bad stories or not doing its justice for remakes. And I think something that's fun is, I love the, oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're about to get to that point in just a sec. And then our fourth topic today is cinematic potential. Some just feel like they should be films, like The Great Gatsby or Lord of the Rings. And even though those were made like a pretty long time ago, they're now just being like put on the screen. I guess Lord of the Rings isn't too old, but you kind of get what I'm saying. And some of them are just too epic to just stay a book. Like, who wouldn't want to see that on screen? I've never seen The Count of Monte Cristo in a movie, and it actually, like, it's like an itch of mine. I need to watch one of the movies, but I'm scared it's not going to do its justice, because that's the case most of the time. And then another topic that we're going to be talking about is direct adaptations versus inspired works. So there's a couple of things. There's the faithful adaptations, like there's Pride and Prejudice, Little Women, gosh, I'm trying to think of more. And then there's also loose retellings, and that's like Clueless is actually inspired by the book Emma by Jane Austen. And then 10 Things I Hate About You is The Taming of the Shrew. I've never heard of that one, but that was something that came up on my research. And I feel like there's a couple others that I just didn't write down. Or then there's also changing the setting, which Lion King is a like a reimagining of Hamlet, and West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet, obviously. If you can think of any others, just let me know in the comments, because these were all that I could come up with. But when it comes to faithful adaptations, it's very, like, they're always a hit or a miss. Because they'll either have the same, like, nostalgia factor that you have when you're reading the books for the first time or hearing of the stories for the first time, and it'll either, like, capture it perfectly, or it'll completely miss it and you'll be like, what the frick, why did I even try? And I feel like I talk about this a lot in the, like, is Hollywood running out of ideas? Because I mentioned, I think Gladiator 1 and 2. I don't know if I'd seen it at the time, but, like, I had never seen Gladiator, and then I went and saw the second one in theaters, and I loved it. I was like, this is the best movie I've ever seen. Like, it was so good. And I hyped it up for, like, all my friends. And then they're like, okay, we'll go see it. I doubt it's better than the first. And they'd actually seen the first. And so I watched the first movie and I was like, no, I like the second one more. Like, it's just better. And then they went and saw the second movie and they hated it. And now they hate me for it, but that's okay. But I think nostalgia is a huge factor in those that directors really have to like pay attention to if they're doing an adaptation, because like, it's important. I still think Gladiator 2 is way better. I will die on that hill. I should make a video discussing it because there's a lot of things I could talk about. But I do also really like loose retellings. I think it's fun to like change the setting or modernize it. There's one that is like a modernized story and I was like, this is great. Oh yeah, but they're just everywhere. I don't know why I can't think of anything right now. My brain is so... But yeah. And that's the beauty of it, is like, I just love... We're definitely not going to be able to come up with too many new original stories of like concepts that you've never heard of, because we've already done so much. Like, think of Star Wars. Like, could you imagine trying to, like, if you make a space sci-fi movie now, it's like, okay, we've already seen that. But just because, yeah, we've just seen everything. But when it's done well, I don't even know why I'm rambling at this point. Now we're gonna go into the next topic of discussion, and that's, are these adaptations doing justice? And that's like the biggest part of it. And I was just mentioning that, it's the nostalgia factor. A lot of people, it is definitely like a creative choice if you want to, like, if you're wanting to do like literally from the book and like adapt it. Or if you're like, I like the concept of this, but I'm gonna change it. I feel like the fans are never in the loop of what's gonna happen, so it's never going to be like, someone's always gonna be unhappy. Like, I remember when the book that got me into reading is The School for Good and Evil, and when that one came out as a movie, I was so disappointed because they were like skipping important things. They were like, it's like 6 books in the series. They were trying to like add stuff that would be happening in book 3 to the first movie, which, I mean, they kind of had connections, but I feel like we lost sight of that in the first movie. Like, we lost sight of like the like plot. Like, they were trying to set up too much, if that makes sense. And like, I personally think like foreshadowing is cool, but when it's distracting you from the plot that's supposed to be happening, it irritates me. Like, I like foreshadowing if it's like barely at the beginning of the movie, and then like it goes through, and then at the end it's like, oh, we got a call, you know, like those kind of movies. Like, I like those, because then it also leaves room for a sequel if you want to, but then it also doesn't take away from the movie itself. Am I making sense? I feel like I'm not making sense. But yeah, like, I was so distracted with being like, okay, they're mentioning things from book 3 now. What about this? So the movie felt very like incomplete. But yeah, so I feel like when people are doing more remakes and stuff, I feel like they should be more vocal about if they're sticking really close to the storyline or if they're straying from it. Like, I know when I watched Barbie, I was hoping it was gonna be, like, I think from the trailers that I watched, I was expecting it to be like this fun movie where it's just Barbie living in like Barbie land, and then she like gets stuck in the real world and like whoopsie, and then she's just trying to get back to it. But with all the feminism and politics that were involved in it, I was just like, That wasn't the Barbie movie I was like hyped up for. Like it was like good, like it was a good story to tell, but it wasn't, I feel like it wasn't the Barbie we were all hoping. Like my brother, he's a huge Barbie fan. Like he loves Barbie Life in the Dream House. He's older, by the way. And when he watched that movie, he was so disappointed. He was like, that wasn't fun. Like it wasn't the vibes I was going for. And like sure, the beginning of the movie is pretty fun, but it didn't keep that vibe the whole way through. Like it got way too dark and like just like not like way too dark, but like it wasn't what we were expecting, which was kind of disappointing. So I just feel like overall there just needs to be more communication with the audience, because it's like I feel like all my videos end up looping around to this topic of just like they need to listen to what the audience wants and less about like, oh well, I'm gonna do this, I don't care if people like it. It's like, well, you should. Like that's just the moral of the story, I think, in every cinephile episode. But now we're going to be talking about the future of classic literature and film. What's next? Like, we've seen a lot of remakes, we've seen a lot of, like, goofy stuff. We've seen a lot of, like, extensions of the stories, like the Wednesday series for the Addams Family. I thought that was clever. There's another one that came out. I really like almost spin-offs of classic stories. I also like silly, like, remakes where they like take the concept of it and then they just like completely change it. Like Pride and Prejudice and Zombies. It's like one of the most ridiculous movies, but I love it. Like because it was so much like one of those like, okay, Pride and Prejudice, guys, Pride and Prejudice, but let's add zombies. And they're like, okay, and then they did it and it like works. So like those are fun. That was creative and that was something fun to like, memorable to watch. And then I do think that it's fun to have faithful adaptions, like randomly, like the West Side Story movie that came out, I think 2019, or was it 2020 or 2021? I don't know. These years have been a blur. But I like that one because it felt like an old movie, and it was Steven Spielberg. The next video I'm going to be talking about best and worst directors, and obviously Steven Spielberg is on the best. Like, I love all those things that he do. Like, oh goodness. But with that, it felt like an old, authentic movie, and it kind of just felt like it was like a refurbishment of the old one, which was perfect. And like, I'm so glad that they did it that way, and they didn't modernize it too much, or they didn't try to. I'm glad how they didn't put any woke agendas into it, because I feel like that's also the other thing is when they do remake like classics, they will be like, and now this character is gay. It's like, do we have to modernize everything? And like, or I hate it when movies don't do justice for things like women's rights, or even like black rights and stuff, where they'll kind of just ignore that it happened. And I'm like, no, if it's taking place in that time, like I almost want, and it's like being completely accurate historically, except for that, it's almost like it's pretending like it didn't happen, you know? I just don't like it when it's too light and fluffy and we're just gonna make everybody happy. Like, it's okay to have these hard conversations and hard topics in movies. So, and like West Side Story specifically, it spoke a lot about like racism. So, and it wasn't that they ignored it, and it wasn't like they were glorifying it. It was there. It's part of the story because it's a historical like drama in a way. So I think it was good. But yeah, I keep on mentioning this video a lot, but definitely go check out The Death of Originality, the video that I made, because I just talk a lot about how Hollywood should recycle stories more, how we should create new plots, and it kind of goes along this like topic, which has been interesting. It's so funny because I have a horrible memory, but then as I'm like researching stuff, I'm like, I feel like I've done this before. And it'll always like, just like little twinks of it in the video. But it goes to show that like film is such like a whole process. Like it's a full picture kind of a thing. And talking about these little topics will help you understand things better. And you'll learn to appreciate it more. So yeah. But yeah, that is all for today's video. Once again, I like, I thought that this was a cool video. It's not my absolute favorite that I've ever scripted because, like, it's interesting, but it's not that interesting. But I was scripting next week's video and the week after that because I'm doing it in 2 parts because there's so much to talk about. And it's best first worst directors, and we're gonna be talking about that, and it's gonna be so exciting because it is such an interesting thing to talk about. And there's something about, like, film is such a creative industry, so it's hard to judge people based off of creativity, but then there's also some things that you can judge people on, and I drop a lot of, like, controversial opinions in it, and also just facts. That's the thing, is, like, a lot of my 98% of the research that I do and tell you guys on these videos is all non-biased, and it's just research based off of, like, what other people have said, what the internet says about it, based off of, like, by the book stuff. And then there's always just, like, that little bit of, like, opinions. So I think it does talk about something in the next video where I don't agree with, because it's, like, a personal opinion. Like, I don't think it was that bad, but according to everybody else, it's that bad. So I wonder if there's gonna be any topics like that you'll think about that in the next video. So please subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you can get notifications whenever I release. I'll do it around, like, 10 a.m. my time, which is, I think, Eastern Standard Time. I don't know how to speak. But, so, Mountain Time, it's like 8 a.m. and then, I don't know what the other side is. Like, Western Time is 7? Dang, okay. So yeah, just turn on the notification bell so you get notified whenever I release on Cinephile Saturdays. But I will speak to you guys next time. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks for watching. Bye!